I'd say that the first thing that you need to do is to read. If you're not a reader, you can't be a writer. Reading it fills your imagination. It's like your imagination is a reservoir. Reading fills it with all kinds of stories, characters, scenarios. So reading is the first thing. After that, I would say that 4 things that are very, very important are to remember the 4 Ps. So that is people, plot, pace, and purpose. Right. So with people, who are your characters? Who are you writing about? Because if the audience, if your readers don't care about your characters, they're not going to care about what happens to them, and they're not going to care about the story. When we're thinking about characters, right, when thinking about ordinary people, what do they want? What do they desire desperately above all things? And what are they afraid of? Because people are often motivated to do things by what they really want, trying to get what they want, or what they're afraid of, trying to avoid certain outcomes, certain scenarios. Fear and desire therefore drives a lot of conflict, and it produces change. And conflict and change produce the second P, which is plot. So with plot then, what kind of conflict or problem is at the heart of the story? And often that will come out of what the character wants or what the character fears. And trying to solve the conflict or to solve the problem brings the character on a journey. Right, so the journey that they go through may end happily or unhappily, but that's actually what produces the plot, right? And then there is either a resolution at the end, or something happens anyway, because you want your reader just to keep asking what happens next, and to care about what happens next to the character. Now, another thing that is really important as well is place. The setting of the story is very important, right? So it's not just that it's set in the present in Sydney or Melbourne, or or in the past in some historical period, or in some fantasy future. It's not enough just to say it's set in there. You've got to make the reader feel it. So the reader has got to be able to see it, to hear it, to sense it. How does the air feel around you? How does the ground feel under your feet? What are the sounds that you hear? Right, you've got to immerse your character and your reader in the place. And then I guess the 4th P, so we've got people, we've got plot, we've got place, and then purpose as well. There's really 2 kinds of purposes. The first kind has to do with how you're going to tell the story, and the second is the point of the story. So with the first kind of purpose then, it's really the function of the story. And here I always like to think about the architectural dictum, form follows function, right? So what kind of form your novel or your story takes is going to depend on the function. If you're selling a product, for example, the function is going to be really different than if you want to capture a child's attention and bring them on an imaginative journey. So the function then, if your function is to explore language, to explore words, right, then probably you're going to be writing a literary novel. If your function is to make people afraid, to fill them with fear and suspense, to keep them on the edge of the seat, then probably you're going to be writing a thriller or a suspense story or a crime story or something like that. If, on the other hand, your function is to take readers on a long emotional journey where they find love, maybe they lose love, and who knows what happens at the end, then probably you're writing a love story or a romance story of some sort. So the form, the genre of the story follows the function, the purpose of it. So that's the first kind of function. The second kind of purpose then is really, why does it matter at all? Why should your story matter to your readers? When you're telling a story, whether you're telling it verbally or whether you're asking people to read a story, what you're demanding from your audience or your readers is time. So why should people give you their time and invest that time in listening to or reading your story? Right, so you've got to do something that matters because they care about the character, because you've got a really important message that you want to convey, because you are introducing them to something which is new and unique and maybe fun or funky, but there has to be, it's got to matter to someone. So I'd say that those are, those are some of the top tips in terms of storytelling. Other things I would say are really important is to, if you are a writer, you should write the stories you like to read. Now we've already talked about the importance of reading, but if you like to write popular genre fiction, if you like to read fantasy or science fiction, you shouldn't think that if you're going to be a writer, you've got to be a literary writer, because that's, you're going to fail, you're not going to enjoy it. You've got to write what you enjoy reading. And the other thing I say to students when they start writing is, and this might sound odd coming from a creative writing teacher, but I would say, give yourself permission to write badly at first, right? Take the pressure off. Just give yourself, when you sit down with the page or in front of the computer screen, just give yourself permission. Say, okay, I'm going to write a story and I'm going to write badly. And that takes the pressure off, and you can just get all the words out, and it's going to be bad. So, and that's okay, because actually, and this is the most important thing I think in writing, the art of writing is rewriting. Your first draft is never the final draft. And to write well is not actually to write it well the first time, but to revise, to edit, to refine, to implement techniques, and then to do it all over again until you get that draft that you're happy with. So the art of writing is rewriting. I'd also say that another tip in storytelling, and this is particularly for me, but I know for a lot of publishers and editors nowadays, if you're hoping to sell your story, another tip is to be compelling, right? So the days where you could start once upon a time in a village far, far away, and you go through pages of description, setting up the village, setting up the background and all of that, nobody's going to sit through that nowadays, because we live in such a fast-paced society. We want to be plunged right into the action. We want something to hook our attention, to grab us straight away. So I like to try and begin with first sentences that are unusual or that grab the reader's attention in some ways. So in my novels, Love and Vertigo, which was my first novel, and Behind the Moon, I tried to start with first sentences that grab the reader's attention. So in Love and Vertigo, this is the first sentence. These are the myths I tell about my family, and like all myths, they are both truths and lies, simultaneous buffers of love and betrayals of trust. Right, so immediately I'm telling you a story, but they're actually lies. Right. There is also, then there's the technique there. There's also the, people who are into poetry will recognize the rhythm, the buffers of love and betrayals of trust. It's how the sentence falls. But it's, it's intriguing, right? It doesn't start with a lengthy description or something like that. I'm telling you something, a truth, which is also a lie about this novel straight away. In my second novel, Behind the Moon, this is the first sentence, right? Justin Chong believed in the truth that was to be found in toilets, right? And then it goes from there about his earliest childhood memory was of going to the public toilet, right? So it's something that is, it doesn't start with a setting, it doesn't start with a time or anything like that, but it's unusual, and hopefully it hooks the reader's attention. And I'd say the same thing, you want to, like throughout your story, you're going to want light and shade. It goes up and down. But I also like to finish with a compelling ending, right? An ending where, the reader, you want to leave your reader with something that they will take beyond the covers of the novel, beyond the edge of the page. So that's the payoff for the reader for getting to the end, right? And so I like to end with either whether it's about words, words that are beautifully crafted, and that's what the reader remembers, or an image or an idea or something, right? Make your ending compelling as well. So at the end of Love and Vertigo, the first novel, this is the takeaway, I guess, for readers. Right at the end of the novel, the last paragraph, the last few sentences are this: questions still remain unanswered. There will never be a reconciliation with those we have lost, but maybe this is all I can do. Maybe this is all we can ever do to make up to the living our debt to the dead. Right, so that's the takeaway from the first novel. So, you know, be compelling, and then if you want to sell your work, research the market, and then and I guess the last tip, and I've given you a lot, is you know, have fun with it, because nobody is forcing you to write. And no one is forcing you to tell a story. So if you want to do it, obviously it's something that you enjoy. And in the midst of writing, never forget, you know, that you're choosing to do this and have fun with it, right? So again, read, remember your 4 Ps: people, plot, place and purpose. Write the stories you love to read. Give yourself permission to write badly when you first start, because the art of writing is rewriting. Be compelling, research your market, have fun with it, and then, you know, I guess just basically remember that a writer is somebody who writes. A writer writes. We've been offering a postgraduate course in creative writing for over 20 years now, with great success. And I would say that we have a lot of experience in teaching face-to-face as well as teaching online classes. I would say that what really characterizes our Masters or Creative Writing course is the fact that we have a very holistic and wide-ranging program that we're constantly fine-tuning. And what we want to do is to introduce prospective writers and existing writers who are already practicing their craft. We want to introduce them to a variety of different writing styles and industry practices as well. So in the Master of Creative Writing, we cover all the literary genres. So we cover poetry, short stories, experimental writing, short form fiction. We cover literary fiction, but we also cover popular genre fiction. We will cover crime, romance, fantasy, and things like that, historical fiction as well. We also teach students how to write creative nonfiction. The nonfiction market is a burgeoning market as well, and we have you know, students who have done very successfully in writing creative nonfiction. We also teach students to write, I guess, what is called feature writing. So feature writing are the things that you read in, you know, weekend magazines or magazines, like short pieces about travel, food, lifestyle, entertainment, health, all of those kinds of things as well. That's more vocationally oriented, right? And then, of course, we do teach students how to develop a novel or a novella. And we also cover digital writing, because the digital space in terms of blogging, in terms of Instagram poetry, all of those kinds of things are becoming very big. So we cover a wide variety of writing styles, but we also are very much, because we are a university, we're also invested in academic research as well as creative research. So, I mean, if you come to university to do a Master of Creative Writing, it's different from just going to a writing college, although there are wonderful writing colleges out there as well. But you come to university because you're going to get something which is intellectually rigorous, right? It's not going to be just the skills in writing. You're going to learn about how literature works. What are the great ideas? You know, what are the current theories that have influenced, you know, our writing today? You're going to have, you know, perspectives from sociology, anthropology, philosophy, all other types of disciplines which feed into your writing and enrich your writing. And when you're studying at a university, because we are in this academic environment, it doesn't mean that your writing becomes very, very academic, because we still focus on the craft of storytelling. What it means, however, is that this ferment of ideas that's going on, you know, at university, whether it's science or medicine or sociology or, you know, or social justice, you know, whatever it is, all of these ideas are brought into your studies, right? So we look at it academically, and then we translate it into, okay, how do we tell a compelling story about this, and where's the market for it as well? So one of the things that we help you to do is to develop your manuscript, whether it's short form fiction or you know, a novel or novella. We teach you to edit it, to revise, to work with a community, a writing community, to give and receive critical feedback, to implement that feedback to improve your writing. And then we teach you how to approach publishers as well in a professional way. So we're covering really, I guess, three broad areas. We're covering academic scholarship because we are at Macquarie University. We're also covering the professional stuff, the practical techniques of creative writing across a very, very wide genre. And then we're giving you the skills to start approaching industries as well. Where can you publish it? We teach you how to do research for creative writing so that you can find the venues or the outlets where your work might be published. I think those are things that characterize the course. Other things that I would say are strengths of the Master of Creative Writing at Macquarie University is the fact that you have access to very practical and intense writing units, right, to develop all of the kinds of skills I've just been talking about. We've got very high caliber teachers, both on staff as well as guest lecturers who are published writers who come into and provide content for the units. You will form a part of a writing community with other students as well. And you can get involved in organizing your own writing groups. You also get the chance to, I guess, put your writing skills into practice because we have a student journal that has run for many years. It's called The Quarry. And there are many issues of The Quarry. You can go online and search for The Quarry at Macquarie University. We teach students not just to write content for The Quarry, but to put it together. What are the skills needed to commission, to edit, to work with authors, and then to publish it as well. So all of that, are the practical skills that you learn in putting The Quarry together. And we also have a literary podcast called From the Lighthouse that covers literature, creative writing, all kinds of topics within the humanities. And each episode of From the Lighthouse podcast receives about between 10 and 14,000 listeners. So that's quite a sizable audience. And students have the opportunity to develop content for that as well. So I think all of these things are what makes the Master of Creative Writing at Macquarie University very successful. And as I said, it's been going for over 20 years.